So okay, now you are being recorded. Okay, and I apologize, I did not get that before the meeting. Now for share. Share screen.
And then, there you go.
And now, hold on, I just gotta find the right window. Maybe. Okay, where is my word packet? All right, here we go. So we are now on agenda item number 4, the NEMT income.
Yes.
Okay, so there's our background information. Medical transportation reconciliation process has determined that the actual profit and loss numbers are a bit different than our original projection. And Sherry managed to go through all the way back to July and reconcile the whole thing. So this is the overall picture of the NEMT program.
I know we discussed at the last meeting that Bay Cities had overpaid us and we weren't sure how far that went back. It went to January. There was like $190 from October to December, which was hardly anything. So I think it just started very late December, but it has been going on since January and it continues. So that's something that Cheryl's gonna have to bring to the attention of Bay Cities.
And I actually have reached out to them and left that information in their voicemail. Let them know that the reconciliation portion on our side is complete. And then Sherry also found some underpayments that are accounted for in this total amount for the overpayment as
I
well.
deducted what they underpaid us from what they overpaid us, and that 23,778.35 is what the difference is, so. Does anybody have any questions about it?
No projection for additional overcompensation. We think they're gonna correct it right away.
Yeah, we're trying to correct it right away, but there's not a projection because it's kind of haphazard.
Till we can get in touch with Bay Cities, we don't really know what that looks like, if we're gonna have to pay that 23,000 back to them, or if it's something that has been their error. It has not been our error. So our team has been submitting the billing correct, and they have been paying the billing incorrectly.
Cheryl, were you ever able to get a hold of them?
I have not been able to actually touch base with them now. I've left them multiple messages. And it's directly to the manager of the program in Coos Bay of Bay Cities brokerage.
And we have not gone in a deficit for the program as a whole. I know that that was a concern on the last meeting. So we've only had a net income of 13,000, which if we had only the volunteers, we would have had a profit of 119,000. So 81,000 of that has been eaten up by the wheelchair deficit.
And pretty much we had put this together as information for you to utilize for the remaining items on the agenda as well.
Okay. Any questions for Cheryl or Sherry on this portion? Okay, we'll move on to item 5, review effective personnel changes on fiscal year 24 budget through June.
So Sherry has,
Do they have to make a
she,
motion or anything on that?
no, it's
Okay.
information.
Okay.
Yep. So Sherry provided profit and loss for the April to June projections, showing what that would look like, having 5 drivers for 3 pay periods. And it's because it's such a short amount of time, it is a minimal number. And I don't know if you want to speak to this, or is it at the bottom that you've listed?
Yes.
Okay. So there are 2 versions. One is, okay, I'm sorry, I must be missing net income of 584,
That's the
343.
old one. That's the, that was the original projection. That was sent to ODOT, before our meeting, I think last week. And then based on our board meeting and the ODOT meeting, it was asked to do a new projection, April through June, cutting the 5 drivers, which at this point is only gonna be 3 pay periods because we've just made payroll for this week, so we only really have 3 more pay periods till the end of the year. So there it is, the 605.
And the other was 584, is that correct? So a difference of about 21,000.
21,067.
Any questions on that? Okay, we'll move on to item 6, authorization to hire a transit supervisor.
So this item was raised in the April board meeting during the not on agenda. This is a position that has been vacant since the last week in March, and this is the position that provides early morning coverage Monday through Friday. So they're that 4:30 in the morning show up, and then they cross over just slightly with the afternoon supervisors or supervisor as they come in. So this absence, this vacancy, it increases Randy's workload, our operations manager, makes it more difficult for him to complete his more complex requirements of his job. For example, doing the route bids and things of that nature to help move this process forward as we're transitioning City of Sutherland and City of Winston. That was a really difficult thing for him to complete as he was also filling that transit supervisor position. So the total budgeted compensation in the budget right now for this is $80,772. We've had 3 applicants within the company, and they would fall in either steps 3, 5, or 6. Their total compensation based on those steps is listed there under applicants 1, 2, and 3. And the difference that that would make in our current budget is listed there at the end. And he has not made a decision or offered the position at this time.
I'd take a motion to allow hiring of a transit supervisor.
Second.
I'll take a motion. I can't make the motion.
I make a motion to authorize hiring a transit supervisor.
Is there a second?
I'll second it. Can we have discussion though?
Yes.
Really quickly. Okay. So I'm just wondering, so we have 3 internal hires, or potential internal hires. And we're also having this discussion about, potentially eliminating driver positions. Are those applicants, are those drivers that would move into the supervisor position?
Yes, one of them is a demand response driver. The other 2 are fixed route transit drivers.
So if they take that position, if one of them were to take that position, then we would, if we eliminated any of these positions in the future, um, it would really just be a matter of not filling a vacant position. Is that correct?
It would depend on who the successful applicant is. So if, yeah,
Okay, so some of the positions would need to be filled regardless. Is that what you're saying?
yes, two of the applicants, if we promoted them to supervisor, then we would have to backfill their transit driver position.
Okay, and how quickly are you looking to hire someone?
Randy?
Well, we've already gone through the interviews. Need to go through a final review of the scoring and put it on the matrix, and at that point can make an offer.
Okay, are like time wise, are we looking at like 1-2 weeks, something like that?
Week.
A week? Okay, cool, thank you.
I amend my motion.
Well, I don't know how that works. What was that?
I amend my motion.
I can't hear what.
He's asking to amend his motion.
Oh, yeah.
I make a motion that we hire a driver that would keep on a current driver that would not, that would be eliminated.
I don't know that we have authority to do that. That's against hiring practices.
Okay.
But we could suggest that they look to fill the vacant position with one of the positions that's looking to be cut, if that person were qualified. If that's what is that what you're insinuating, Doug?
Yeah, they said two of the people already interviewed and are under consideration would keep on a driver that would be cut.
Right, I
Hire the
think
most qualified applicant.
exactly. I agree. I think this gets into the hiring thing that we can't really touch, but I would just maybe recommend to the board that we maybe hold off on making any decisions about cutting positions until we know whether or not we even need to. I mean, there might be a vacant position. So if it's only going to take a week or two to make that decision, we might have more information to vote on that later. But I am in support of hiring a supervisor.
Okay.
I'm in support as well, but just to comment on what Michaela is saying there, I think we'll need to make a decision on the 3 drivers for budgetary purposes. We have to have a balanced budget.
Mhm.
Right. Do we have to make that decision today?
I think we put it off already for a whole week from last meeting, and ODOT is really looking for decisions.
Okay, back to my original motion. I make a motion, we hire a transit supervisor.
We have a motion by Doug and a second by Michaela. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. So agenda item 7 is reviewing additional budget reductions.
Yes, so in the meeting last week with ODOT, one of the things that was pointed out, here, let me scroll down a little bit. One of the things that was pointed out is that the stiff number that we had in our budget was not the most up-to-date projection. And so Sherry has put together a number of different budget scenarios. And part of them are to show the effects of the recommendations that you've discussed at recent meetings. Like you wanted to see the budget without capital in it so that you could see the effect of the various different choices that were put on the table. So I have all 7 of those spreadsheets open and can share. Is there a particular one that you would like to see first? Or do you want to just go in order?
Let's just go in order.
All right, and I'm gonna let Sherry speak to these. Can you see the spreadsheet that's on my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm gonna give this to you.
Okay, so this is scenario one, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So as you can see on the, I put a new tab in here just to kind of outline what was changed for this budget. We corrected the net working capital to 500 from 200, which is more in line with where I think we will be after all of our reimbursements and money in the bank at the end of June. Drew pointed out at our last meeting that we originally had 2,263,802 as our projection for income for the STIF plan. And the more realistic number is going to be 2,040,000. So we had to reduce that, which was a little over $400,000 on a reduction of income. We also corrected the medical transportation income to the volunteers only, which is, we have 6 to 7 sometimes. So I corrected that. This budget was the original budget that we ended with at the last board meeting with the 4% COLA for all the employees with the medical cost increases to $75 for all the employees. For the employee only portion, and then an increase from 15 to 20% on the dependent coverages. This also includes the executive assistant position. I removed all the medical transportation drivers, which was 3, along with the material and services. So all the preventative maintenance, fuel, that kind of thing. Keeping 3 positions, which are positions that we've talked about cutting. We've talked about cutting a total of 5. So this would just be eliminating the 3 medical transportation and then keeping the
Sherry,
500.
Is that just wheelchair drivers?
That is just the wheelchair drivers.
Thank you.
And then this is keeping the 522,000 in that we had put in there to rebuild the capital reserve. This one though, we are not in balance at all. So we are in a negative of 668,742,000. Any questions on this one? No? Okay. Let's see.
It's done. Yeah.
So this is scenario 2. This one, everything on the income is remaining the same. So the 500 from 200, reducing the STIF, the medical transportation. This one is a 0% COLA for all employees. The medical costs increased $75 for each of the employee only and 20% on the dependents. Keeping the executive assistant, removing the 3 medical transportation drivers and an additional 2 drivers. So that's the total of 5, and keeping the 522K in capital reserve. This one is still at a negative of 445,733. Scenario 3. This one's all the income changes and then 0% COLA for all with no additional medical costs than what they're originally paying right now. This one was removing the executive assistant, removing the 3 medical transportation drivers, but keeping 2 of the para or DAR drivers and removing the 522K in capital reserve. This one, we're still at a negative of 83,398. I tried to put them in order of the the most deficit to the least, to being more balanced. So, why did that not open? Here we go. This is number 4. This one is a 4% COLA, increasing the medical costs again to the employees, keeping the executive, removing 5 drivers total, 3 medical and 2 of the para or DAR, and removing the $522K. And this one is at 20,000 deficit. Number 5 is a 2% COLA for all, no additional medical costs to the employees, removing the executive assistant, removing 3 of the medical and 2 of the para or DAR, and removing the $222K. This is our first balanced budget with $11,125 in unallocated. So this is scenario number 5.
Which scenario are you thinking, Mike?
We've got 2 more. I've got 2 more. How does it keep doing that? There it is. This is scenario 6. This one is no COLA for the employees, but no additional medical costs, removing the executive, removing the 5 drivers total, and removing the $522,000. This one we have a balanced budget with $54,252 in unallocated. And then I've got Wolf. This one's a 4% COLA with the medical costs increasing to the employees. Removing the executive, removing the 5 drivers, and removing the $522,000. And this one is a balanced budget with $56,144,000. And that is it. If anybody has any questions on any of them, please let me know.
Is there a balanced budget that keeps the executive assistant?
There is not, I don't believe. I think 5 was our first one. And I had to remove it on all of them. If we add to any of these, so the most that we are on a balanced budget is 56,000, and the executive assistant position will run us about 76,000, I think is what we've said.
Okay.
Doesn't mean we can't revisit it at a later date if, our savings starts showing, a better.
I guess I'll open it up for the board for discussion, or if anybody has a preferred scenario.
I guess I'd be looking at number 5.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going to. I like number 5.
That's where I was gonna go to.
This one is the $11,125 balanced budget.
Check out the employees with that removed.
We still have, any way we look at it, we're really gonna have to remove 5. I tried just doing the 3 on several and it didn't make enough of an impact.
Do we
And
know
you're
what that,
talking-
sorry,
Go ahead.
do we know what that looks like? Like, I mean, you guys know your employees better than we do. Do we know, are there employees that are close to looking at retirement? Are there, do we know what the impact is going to be?
We can speculate, but that's really a decision that comes to the manager and the supervisor that they'll be making those decisions either based on seniority or based on performance, but seniority is the most, universal way to do that.
Is it
And
possible
then-
to ask, like, if any, like, to do like a volunteer ask first to see if there is anybody that's ready to do that instead of just automatically cutting?
Yes.
My preferred scenario is 6, just because, I mean, it gives us a better buffer. I know it's no COLA for the employees, but again, like Sherry said, that's something we could revisit later on to add a COLA back in. Like, just
So
$11,000 doesn't seem like enough to, if something came up, an emergency came up, and how are we gonna fund that?
what,
I think we could
what
still.
would number? Go ahead.
I mean, that 6 was my second choice, but I was, and I kind of felt the same way, Sarah, for the same reason. But it's also not necessarily that significant, and there may be opportunities to adjust if we had to in the future. For example, on insurance and things like that.
Which scenario kept their insurance but no COLA?
That's number, number 6.
What
So-
would number 5 look like if we still did the insurance scenario with adding the $75 per pay period per employee? And what would that one look like? Because that's what's gonna start, the way that this is built, we're not building any reserve. Everything that we have coming in will be going out, and we will consistently be in the same spot of, are we gonna have enough to do the daily routine things if we don't have something that builds in a reserve? It also doesn't allow us to build the reserve of 24,000 for the one vehicle. And I think that we're in a spot where we can't afford not to have at least one more new vehicle. The breakdowns are getting more and more expensive. And we have been to the point multiple times where if one more vehicle goes out of service, we have to pick which route to close for the day.
I appreciate that, Cheryl, but I also know that this has been a budgetary issue that is something that we've caused, and it makes me sick to my stomach to think that we're going to put that cost on the employees and increase
That's-
cost for the employees. I don't
That's
like that
exactly
at
what I'm
all.
saying. So if we
They
could
didn't,
keep,
I mean, they didn't contribute to this, so I don't feel it's fair that they have to cover the cost of
if they could
our
get enough,
deficit.
they could get enough COLA to cover the increased cost in the medical, I'd be okay, but the 2% COLA, no additional medical cost.
Even the 4%, because this one, number 7. Is the one that has a 4%. We're still have a balanced budget with the most reserve, but it's the 4%, but I don't think that the 4% is not gonna cover.
Well, most of it, a good portion of it. I like the 2% with no additional medical. I don't feel. Again, I'm. Coming from where Sarah is, that the employees shouldn't pay for these mistakes.
What's the
So I'm
difference between,
all for keeping everything we can for the employees.
what's the difference between 5 and 6 again? I can't remember what 6 looked like.
Okay, so this one is number 5. This one is the 2% COLA, no additional medical costs, removing the executive assistant, 5 drivers, and the 522 in capital reserve. And this one, we're balanced with 11,125. And then 6 is
And-
no COLA It's just no COLA is the only difference. But it gives us 54,000.
Okay.
And to your
Or either
point,
one of
Cheryl,
those.
with that, we have that 54,000. How much is what is the reserve needed for the bus? What did you say it was?
24,000.
So that still leaves us with 30 or what, 28, 20, whatever. It's the middle of the day. I'm not mathing today, but that still leaves us with a higher leftover.
Unappropriated.
Even if we take out that 24,000 for the bus.
I think you should say that.
What was that?
I still like option 5, but I can live with option 6.
I'll be quiet.
I'm behind anyone that doesn't increase costs to the employees.
Well, I also think we have to remember the customer too, so, if we don't
Yeah.
have customers, we don't have drivers. So we have to make sure that we're supporting the district and make sure that we can make it all work, even if it's tough times.
Well, there's any scenario that balances the budget cuts out those 5 drivers.
Do we have an
Well-
opportunity to hire a part-time driver? I mean, if we have this 54,000 left over, is that a possibility?
At some point, it depends on the needs of the business and the availability of the funding in the budget. That becomes a decision if we're adding additional personnel. That's a decision that now comes to the board for approval prior to the process.
Basically, Michaela, we can revisit any of these options later on if our financial picture is looking better than it is now. I think is the point.
Right. I'm just looking at, I agree, we don't want to pass on, any of these negative things to the employees. But I'm looking at scenario 6, if that gives us an opportunity to possibly retain maybe part-time a driver. I'm looking at ways to, potentially save a job or a part of a job is my point.
Is that, which one are we looking at now?
This is number 6.
And that's with the 54,
Yes,
no COLA, no additional medical.
right.
54,000.
I'm sorry. It's 54,252. And then scenario 5 was the other one that you guys were talking about, and that one is 11,000, but that is at 2%. COLA, no additional.
I like option 6.
I'm just gonna get it on the table. I'm gonna make a motion to go with option 6.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to accept scenario 6. Is there any further
I already-
discussion?
I already seconded.
I said we have a motion and a second. Is
Oh.
there further discussion? Okay, I'll take it to a vote. All in favor of scenario 6, say aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
So then if I'm understanding the process correctly, when we have our board meeting on May 20th, the budget hearing will take place, and then the changes to the budget have to be made after the budget hearing. Then it's posted again, and then we have to have another budget hearing to approve the budget. So that's where we're headed with this.
We can't approve the changes at the budget hearing and forward to the board for approval?
When I was reading the information, from the budget manual, the budget that was recommended by the budget committee to move forward to the budget hearing is the budget that has to be heard in the hearing. And then it does not say whether or not we can speak to that, to what needs to be changed during the hearing. But that's where we accept public comment. And then after the hearing is closed, then the board can make changes to what was recommended to the hearing. And then they can, we put it out again as for another budget hearing.
But that can be within 5 days of
It has to be noticed. Yes.
5 days, I
can be
believe, right?
5 days after the notice, but it takes 4 days for the notice to go in on legal. So, yes, we could technically, early June, before our next board meeting, have a board or have a budget hearing and then complete the process.
Our next budget committee meeting is the 20th before the regular meeting.
No, we don't have another budget committee meeting. We have the hearing during the meeting.
I'm looking at the calendar, hold on.
I am out from the 15th to the 27th of this month. This is an FYI.
Is it 5 calendar days or 5 business days, Cheryl, that it has to be posted? Is it just calendar days?
I'll have to look that up.
Because if we posted it, if we got the notice in today, and it were posted Friday, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we could have a budget meeting on Wednesday before the board meeting.
I think it's 5 calendar days. I don't think it's 5 business days.
And getting back. And everything spread out. Attitude that out.
So I'm not sure if it makes a difference, but the LB1 page from the budget is what gets posted in the paper for the budget hearing. And that notice is already out there. And so I don't know that we can legally change that before we have that hearing.
So then I guess what is the soonest that we could? If you're saying that because that's going to come to us at the board meeting on the 20th, and we're going to reject that budget based on our information that was presented and voted on today, right? Is that what you're saying? And then we have to repost it?
We can modify it and then we have to repost it. We don't have to reject it. We just have to modify it.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
that's what I meant.
Yeah, so we'll modify it after the hearing has been opened for public comment.
But from that hearing, we can modify it in that hearing, right? And then repost it and forward to the board for approval.
The way that I read it, and I will go back and reread to ensure that I'm understanding it correctly. But the way that I read it was the budget that we forwarded as the budget committee to the board for the budget hearing and then to possibly be adopted has to be heard. We have to hear comments on that budget. And then once the hearing closes, then we can make adjustments to it and adopt it. Well, no, we can't adopt it. Then we have to post it again, then we can adopt it.
How long does it have to be posted for, I guess is the question. Once we do all the amendments and approve it at our board meeting on the 20th, how long does it have to be posted?
5 to 30 days before the hearing.
You have to get the legal notice out, allow time
Yeah.
for that, and then you have the hearing. It can be 5 days. It's just basically the length of time to get it legally posted.
Okay. So I think that's doable.
Yeah. We would
Okay.
still have it adopted before the deadline.
Okay.
Because we could adopt it in the June board meeting, correct?
They're talking about having a budget hearing before the June board meeting.
Yeah,
But the board can
because that's
adopt
cutting
it.
it close before the fiscal year starts. I'm sure you guys have administrative stuff that has to be done before that you want done sooner rather than later, I guess I would say.
Mhm.
Okay,
The June board meeting's on the 17th.
yeah. Which only gives you 13 days before the fiscal year goes into effect.
We can post the LB1. You said the LB1's already out. We can actually hold our first hearing, a special meeting to review that first budget. I believe as long as it's legally posted, we can have that sooner than our next board meeting.
I think that's
But
where I
we're-
was going with that.
It just has to be legally posted and give the public notification of an early meeting.
I just have to read and understand that we're doing it correctly.
Okay, will you let us know, please, Cheryl?
I absolutely will.
And then the last thing I had before adjournment, if there was nothing else, Cheryl, do you want to put, I think our bylaws state we can put out for requests for applications to fill the vacancy for the board member, to fill Tom's interim seat or whatever.
I will do that.
Okay,
Don't you need a motion for that?
I think it's in your bylaws that.
it's in the
not-
bylaws that's automatic, that's what we do, right?
That's
Yeah.
automatic?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? Okay, we are adjourned at 12:48.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Do you want to head downstairs?
Just to stop recording and then exit, or does it matter?
Leave the meeting. Yeah, you could stop the recording. And I'm